Part 1 opens on the powerful world of Valora Prime, the shining heart of a vast alien empire that has ruled the galaxy for centuries through fear, strength, and endless war, and at its center sits Empress Zira Val, a ruler known everywhere as merciless and unbreakable, a leader who has crushed entire civilizations without hesitation. And on this night, she holds a grand victory banquet inside a massive golden hall filled with alien nobles, soldiers and banners taken from defeated worlds. Yet beneath the beauty there is tension because the Empire is preparing for another great war, one that will soon fall upon humanity, a young and small species that refuse to kneel. And while the nobles eat and celebrate, the Empress watches silently with cold eyes, her thoughts focused on the coming invasion that will begin in only a few days, believing it will be quick and final. But beside her sits her daughter, Princess Lyra, who is very different from the rest of the Empire, because her legs do not work after an old attack meant to kill her, forcing her to use a floating chair to move, and in a society where weakness is hated. Lyra survives only because her mother's power protects her, though that protection cannot give her joy, and she sits quietly during the feast, watching music and dancers with sad eyes, feeling separated from everything around her. While across the hall stands a human waiter named Elias Carter, a prisoner taken from Earth and placed among other humans who now serve the Empire. And Elias keeps his head low as he moves between tables, knowing any mistake could mean death. But inside he carries memories of a different life where he once danced for joy rather than survival. And when the music in the hall suddenly changes from cold and sharp to slow and gentle, something stirs inside him. And he notices Princess Lyra's fingers moving slightly as if she wants to follow the rhythm but does not know how. And without planning or thinking of the danger, Elias steps forward into the open space of the hall, shocking everyone present as guards tense and weapons begin to rise, because a human stepping out of place is seen as an act of disrespect. But Elias does not look at them or the Empress. Instead, he bows politely and begins to dance, moving slowly and carefully, not to impress or challenge but to invite, shaping each motion so it can be followed from a seated position, and as he dances he looks only at Lyra, silently asking permission, and to everyone's shock, Lyra smiles for the first time in years and reaches out, and Elias gently takes her hand and adjusts his movements so her floating chair becomes part of the dance, spinning lightly and safely, allowing her arms and wings to move freely with the music. And her laughter fills the hall, breaking the heavy silence like light through stone. While the nobles stare in disbelief and the guards hesitate, unsure whether to strike or step back, and the Empress rises halfway from her throne ready to order death. But she stops when she sees her daughter's face, truly seeing it, seeing happiness instead of pain, and slowly she sits back down, allowing the dance to continue. And in that moment something inside the Empress begins to change, though she does not yet understand it, because she has ruled through fear for so long that she forgot what simple kindness looks like. And as Elias and Lyra dance together, the hall feels different, softer, as if the walls themselves are listening. And when the music ends, Elias bows again and steps back, fully expecting punishment, but none comes. And the Empress remains silent, watching him leave, while Lyra holds on to that moment like a treasure. And the night ends not with loud celebration but with quiet thoughts, because unseen by anyone, the smallest act of kindness has planted a seed that will soon grow into a force strong enough to challenge fleets, break empires, and change the fate of the galaxy forever. Part 2 begins with the galaxy plunged into chaos as the Zirathi Empire launches its long-anticipated invasion of human space, a massive fleet of dark, gleaming warships surging across the void like a tidal wave of destruction, each vessel bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire planets. And humanity, with its small fleet and aging ships, braces for what seems an impossible fight. Yet within the human command centers, calm determination replaces fear. Led by Admiral Rhea Okoye aboard the carrier Hope of Dawn, where she organizes a ragged but resourceful group of humans and allied aliens, blending military precision with the ingenuity that has always allowed humanity to survive against greater powers. And as the first shots ring out in space, human ships weave through asteroid fields and magnetic storms, using debris and gravity wells to avoid the heavier and stronger Zirathi fire, employing hit-and-run tactics that inflict damage disproportionate to their size. While aboard Velora Prime, Empress Ziraval monitors the battlefields with mounting unease, noting that human losses are lower than predicted, and their ships, though fragile, fight with daring and coordination that the Zirathi have never encountered, while on the battlefield, small squads of human pilots engage in near-suicidal maneuvers to hold key positions, ramming their ships to block enemy gates and sacrificing themselves to save larger groups of civilian ships. And each act of courage and selflessness begins to chip away at the Empress's certainty that victory will be swift. For she has never witnessed such coordinated bravery. And inside the palace, Lyra watches the battle unfold, still carrying the memory of Elias's dance, a symbol of hope and kindness. And she questions her mother about the human resolve, asking why they fight so desperately for survival. And her words echo in the Empress's mind as reports continue to arrive of small human frigates, holding off enormous Zirathi vessels, pilots guiding escape pods to safety at the cost of their own lives, entire squadrons burning to protect civilians, and yet the humans do not surrender, do not waver, showing patience, courage, and unity in ways the Zirathi consider impossible as generals around Zira grow frustrated, demanding she unleash overwhelming force to crush the humans quickly. But she pauses, thinking of Lyra and the small moments of grace and care that she has rarely seen in the Empire. And then a broadcast reaches the Empress, a human signal sent openly from Earth, showing cities destroyed but civilians helping one another, doctors tending the sick without power, children singing in shelters, soldiers standing firm to protect the innocent, a message of resilience and unbroken spirit. And Admiral Okoye's voice accompanies it, calm and resolute, declaring that humanity asks not for mercy, but only for the Zirathi to see them as they are, fully aware of the strength and determination they hold, and the Empress is struck. Recalling Elias's simple act of dancing with Lyra, the care, the courage, and the human ability to stand up for each other even when facing annihilation, and the juxtaposition of small acts of kindness and large acts of bravery begins to unravel the Empress's long-held convictions about power, conquest, and fear, making her question the values of an empire built entirely on dominance. While within the human fleet, each battle continues with intense ferocity, ships weaving through deadly barrages, crews improvising repairs mid-combat, engineers rerouting power to weapons and shields, medics tending wounded under fire, and humans adapt to every trap set by the Zirathi, displaying ingenuity, teamwork, and resilience that far outstrips their numbers. And even as explosions rip through the void and ships are torn apart, the humans maintain formation, pushing forward, sometimes achieving impossible victories. And news of these feats reaches Velora Prime, unsettling generals and advisors, forcing them to admit grudgingly that humanity is not weak, that they fight for something greater than themselves. And in the midst of this chaos, Lyra reaches out to her mother, urging her to recognize the human spirit, to see their bravery and their compassion, and the Empress listens, torn between centuries of tradition and conquest and the emerging understanding that these humans, small and fragile as they seem, possess a strength the Empire cannot crush. And as reports continue to arrive of heroic acts, strategic sacrifices, and civilians and soldiers alike standing together in defiance of overwhelming odds, Zira realizes that humans are teaching her something no military campaign ever could: that courage, unity, and compassion can be more powerful than fleets, more powerful than weapons, more powerful than fear, and that the war she thought would end in days may instead end in a transformation of everything she has built. Because humans fight not only with their weapons but with their hearts, not for glory or conquest, but for each other, for survival, for life itself. And this realization begins to shift the Empress's thinking in ways she cannot yet fully comprehend. As the battle rages across the stars, human ingenuity and determination continue to defy expectation. Their ships maneuvering with deadly precision and clever tricks that the Zirathi have never encountered, turning the tide of individual skirmishes even when the larger fleet is at a disadvantage. And every story of sacrifice, every pilot who gives their life for others, every engineer who saves a vessel moments before destruction, every civilian who refuses to surrender becomes a thread in a tapestry the Empress cannot ignore, and as she watches, her mind drifts back to Elias and Lyra, the small, intimate moment of trust and joy that she witnessed the night before, realizing that the same human spirit is visible in both dance and battle, and that perhaps the strength of a species is measured not by the size of its fleet or the weight of its weapons, but by the courage to act for others, to stand firm against fear, and to persist when everything seems lost. And in that realization, the seeds of doubt and change begin to grow in her heart, setting the stage for decisions that will alter the fate of the galaxy, because she now sees that humans, though young and fragile, embody a power beyond technology, beyond strategy, beyond conquest, a power born from resilience, empathy, and the unwillingness to yield even when facing impossible odds. And this understanding begins to clash violently with centuries of imperial doctrine, forcing Zira to confront the possibility that her empire is not invincible, that her fleets may not hold, that the humans she had dismissed are capable of acts of courage and ingenuity that defy expectation. And she realizes that the coming choices will not only decide the outcome of this war, but also challenge everything she has believed about strength, power, and the meaning of leadership. And as the battle continues, human ships continue to fight with brilliance and courage, carrying civilians and refugees to safety, countering Zirathi attacks with clever tactics, and sacrificing everything to protect the weak, all while showing mercy and compassion in moments where the Zirathi would only crush. And the contrast between human behavior and imperial expectations strikes the Empress deeply, leaving her conflicted and beginning to understand that the future of the galaxy may depend not on domination but on cooperation, understanding, and the recognition of shared humanity. And in the midst of these star-spanning battles, the small but vivid memory of Elias dancing with Lyra acts as a beacon, reminding the Empress of the potential for beauty, kindness, and connection even in the darkest times. And it is this combination of relentless human courage, sacrifice, ingenuity, and compassion that sets the stage for the Empress's eventual decision, planting the idea that perhaps humanity is not just a species to conquer, but a species to learn from, a species whose actions on the battlefield and in quiet moments alike demonstrate a strength that cannot be measured in ships or weapons. And in this growing understanding, the Empress begins to see that the war is no longer simply about conquest or obedience, but about the recognition of a force greater than mere armies, the indomitable spirit of humanity. Part 3 begins with the galaxy holding its breath as the Empress, Zira Val, makes a decision that no one in the Zirathi Empire could have predicted. she orders an immediate ceasefire across the entire fleet, a command that shocks generals, admirals, and soldiers who have been trained for centuries to follow orders without question and who see the humans as little more than insects to be crushed. And in that instant, chaos erupts among the Zirathi forces, with some commanders confused, hesitant, and afraid to act, while others, loyal to the old ways, attempt to press their attack. Believing that the Empress has lost her mind, yet human fleets freeze, waiting, tense and ready, expecting betrayal, knowing the odds are still overwhelmingly against them. And through the communication channels across the galaxy, the Empress broadcasts herself, her voice calm but firm, announcing that she is ending the war, that the humans have proven a strength beyond measure, and that she will no longer continue the Empire's conquest of their world. A declaration that spread shock and disbelief among her people and allies, because never before has a ruler admitted that a smaller, weaker species could influence the course of galactic events. And her daughter, Princess Lyra, watches beside her, small hands gripping the arm of her chair, knowing that the moment she witnessed with Elias dancing had not been meaningless, that the kindness and courage of one human could awaken even the hardest heart in the galaxy, while some rogue Zirathi commanders, unwilling to obey, advance with weapons ready, forcing a sudden confrontation between rebel Imperial forces and the humans they sought to destroy. And in the midst of this, human ingenuity and bravery shine brightest, as Admiral Rhea Okoye maneuvers her fleet with unmatched skill, guiding ships through narrow gaps, using debris and gravity to slow down the Zirathi vessels, and coordinating desperate counterattacks that, while risky, save countless lives. And the rogue armada clashes violently with loyal Zirathi forces who follow the Empress's orders, creating a chaotic battlefield of fire, explosions, and shifting allegiances, with ships being destroyed, shields failing, and yet the humans continue to act with precision and courage, sometimes sacrificing themselves to protect civilians or larger strategic goals. And during this conflict, the Empress's flagship takes heavy damage while shielding the human evacuation routes, showing that even she is willing to risk her life to protect those she has learned to respect. While Lyra witnesses the destruction, the heroism, and the human willingness to face certain death for others, her heart swelling with admiration and hope. And the climax comes when a massive enemy ship charges directly at the Empress's flagship, weapons locked on, escape pods destroyed, leaving no room for retreat. Yet the humans, led by Admiral Okoye, maneuver the Hope of Dawn in a precise and daring maneuver, taking the brunt of the attack to allow the Empress's ship and remaining evacuees to escape. And in that instant, the human fleet shows the ultimate combination of courage, sacrifice, and strategic skill, proving to the Empress and the galaxy that humanity's strength is measured not in numbers or technology, but in determination, intelligence, and the will to protect others at all costs. And as the battle ends with the rogue Zirathi forces defeated, the Empress realizes that the empire she has built on fear and dominance is no longer viable, that she must step down and allow a new council to govern, one based not on conquest but on cooperation and understanding. And over the following months, human engineers share technology to help those disabled or injured, allowing Lyra to walk again with a combination of Zirathi and human technology, symbolizing the union of compassion and science, while Elias Carter, the human waiter whose small act of dancing sparked the chain of events, performs on a stage before a diverse audience of aliens and humans, and Lyra joins him, moving alongside him as they dance not to show strength or victory, but to celebrate connection, kindness, and the triumph of spirit over fear. And the new council works to unite former enemies, forming a coalition across species that values cooperation, empathy and mutual respect rather than domination. And across the galaxy, stories of human courage, sacrifice, and ingenuity spread, inspiring other species to reconsider old prejudices and alliances. And the Empress reflects quietly, realizing that the galaxy has changed not because of warships or weapons, but because one small human showed care for her daughter. That one simple act of kindness revealed a power that no empire could ignore. And as she watches humans and aliens dance together, helping one another rebuild and thrive, she understands that true strength comes from compassion, sacrifice, and the willingness to act for the good of others. That humanity's small size, limited technology, and fragile bodies are irrelevant compared to the vastness of their spirit. And that the choice to fight, to protect, to care, even against impossible odds, is what shapes the future. And in that moment, the galaxy feels renewed, filled with hope, not ruled by fear. And Lyra, dancing beside Elias, smiles freely for the first time, embodying the victory of empathy, courage, and human resilience. And the Empress, watching, knows that from that day forward, humans are no longer a species to conquer, but a species to admire, to learn from, and to trust, for they have proven that even in the darkest times, even against the mightiest foes, the human spirit endures, fights, and inspires, leaving a legacy that will echo through the stars forever, showing that the greatest victories are not of destruction, but of compassion, unity, and the courage to act for others. And thus the galaxy enters a new era, where humanity's example reshapes empires, teaches lessons of hope and strength, and reminds all beings that kindness and bravery, even in the smallest forms, can change the course of history. And in the end, the human willingness to dance with a disabled child in a distant palace sets off a chain of events that topples empires, saves lives, inspires loyalty, and builds a future where strength is measured not by fear, but by heart. And this becomes the defining story of the age, proving that humans, fragile and unassuming though they seem, are capable of shaping destinies far greater than their size would ever suggest. That through courage, ingenuity, and compassion, they rise above impossible odds, turning near certain defeat into triumph, not through domination, but through the enduring power of the human spirit.